All of our battles and effort have led up to this moment, the endgame of Shadow Dragon and Marth's journey to free the land. But it's not over yet, and in order to end this series with victory instead of defeat, we need to prepare accordingly. Use the timestamp at the beginning of the video description if you want to skip the battle preps and get right into the action. I used quite a few of the stat boosters from Chapter 24 off camera, so I can't show exactly who received them. I did catch giving a talisman to Catria and Est, and a Draco shield to Astram though. And while we're here, let's run through the team that I'll be bringing into this final chapter. Oh, Marth. Probably the most iconic character of the series, but you're so god-awful in this game. The big joke is that Roy is the worst lord in Fire Emblem, and he is basically unusable for a large portion of his own game, but at least when Roy gets his legendary sword, he flips from becoming garbage to being a very strong unit in his own right for the last few chapters of that game. Shadow Dragon's version of Falchion can't really salvage Marth even on the lowest difficulty, but he's the hero and we've got to bring him, so that's just how it is. Sita was definitely the most valuable boss killer on this playthrough, and I don't regret feeding as many kills to her as I did early on. I can finally break out that forged wing spear that bankrupted me when I made it, and that will more than make up for her strength still being in the single digits. She may have been surpassed by other characters by now, but we would have had a much harder time getting here without her. Ogma has been a stable workhorse since Chapter 2 when we picked him up. He's a man of few words and of low axe rank, but he's been through a lot with us and he will be there until the bitter end. Maybe he wasn't the most plot-relevant character I could have chosen to bring, but the way I see it, he made a promise a long time ago that he would protect Marth, and the man keeps promises he makes, so I wouldn't separate him from Marth and Sita for anything. Hardin is without a doubt the strongest member of our team in terms of damage output. I've always used Cain and Abel as my main paladins and never paid much attention to Hardin, but I'm really glad I put in the effort on this playthrough. With Gradavis in his hands, he can punch through pretty much anything the endgame can throw at us. Honestly, I added George to the permanent team because I wanted someone to wield Parthia, and he seemed like the most relevant one. He's not impressive compared to some of the other characters we have on the team, but he has one job, he does it well, and that's what matters. Maria is the biggest meme on this team right now. There's literally no reason for anyone to use her over Lena for an early game healer, but she demanded to help and insisted on no protesting, so I had to listen. She's a princess after all. Even though she's not going to be melting through the enemy ranks with her attack spells, having someone who can wield Warp and Fortify is arguably even more important than having another frontline fighter in this chapter. Minerva's been great ever since we got her, and she'll be at her peak performance in this chapter now that I can have her use Hauteclair without worrying about breaking it. She might be overshadowed by some of her subordinates now, but as our main axe wielder, she can help with the heavy lifting against the many lance-fighting enemies in this chapter. Lind is another character I usually ignore in favor of Merrick, who joins earlier and ends up being a lot more impressive than her by the time she appears, but again, I was pleasantly surprised at her performance once she got going. She's avenged her father's death and grown into a powerful sage along the way. I think he'd be proud. Astram threatened to cut off Marth's head when the two first met, but since then he's just cut off a lot of Marth's enemies' heads instead. He finally has the sword rank and a perfect opportunity to use Mercurius, and as long as his shaky defenses can hold up, he can put in a lot of work here. Catria was, is, and will always be the best girl. She has surpassed Sita in strength and general effectiveness despite joining much later into the game, and her mobility and power make her one of the best characters on our team. Marth might not notice how valuable she is, but I do. Palla got the least attention out of the White Wings on this playthrough, which is a shame because she is very good despite how her stats are reflected in this case. There are probably stronger units I could bring instead of her, but I didn't want to split up the sisters at the end of their long journey together. Zane might not have a lot of story presence in this game, but he's potentially as powerful as any unit in my army, and that's a benefit that nobody can ignore. Est gets a bad reputation, and I understand that training her up probably isn't worth the effort, but honestly, besides those first few levels, she was doing perfectly fine at staying alive and training herself just as well as any other unit on my team. Her high potential ended up coming through and rounding her out nicely, though not as well as Sita or Catria. Still, I'm glad I put in the work to have a full squad of Falco Knights in the final chapter. The game knows that Tiki is pretty essential to finishing the game, and that's for a reason. Being able to melt through anything that isn't using a dragon-slaying weapon definitely takes the edge off the difficulty of the final chapters, and once you see what she can do to Medius, you'll agree that you'd be a fool not to train her up for the endgame. Elise is a backup healer, nothing more, nothing less, but a free A-rank staff user is nothing to turn up my nose at, and even though she'll get splattered by anything she tries to fight, I think she deserves the opportunity to help fight against the kingdom that has done so much harm to her. And then we have everybody else in the army, those who were with us since the start and those who just joined us recently, those who never saw a single battle and those who arguably would have been a better pick to bring than the characters I'm actually taking to the final chapter. Even characters who I shouldn't possess due to having too many other characters still be alive. Thanks for your contributions, I'm sure you'll get your chance another day. Alright, let's do this. So this is the final battle, and this is Gato, one of the potential final recruitable characters. You don't get to interact with him or his inventory and battle preparations, so what he comes with is what you get. And what you get is a level 18 promoted magic user with amazing stats and some of the best magic tomes in the game. Gato is the game's final gift to you for making it this far, and he's absolutely intended to carry you to victory if you've lost a lot of units and are running dry on people who can fight the enemies here. Gato isn't a tank by any means, but he can still completely melt the low resistance units on this map with his Thoron tome, and target enemies from far away since he comes with the only swarm tome available to the player in the entire game. On top of that, he can heal individuals to full with Recover and top off the entire team with Fortify. He's an absolutely fantastic unit, and his growths don't matter in the slightest because he has only 2 levels to grow, and the game is over once you beat this chapter, but I'll put them up anyway. If you went through Chapter 24X before going to the endgame, Nagi joins you instead of Gato, and you get a different opening cutscene. Nagi is the third, final, and by far the strongest playable Maneki in the game. Coming in with double-digit stats in her untransformed state, and the ability to use Divine Stones should tell you all you need to know. This woman will shred everything she can get her hands on in this chapter, up to and including Medius with a little bit of help. Her only weaknesses are needing to get into melee range to fight, her low movement, and lacking the staff utility and ranged magic that Gato would bring to the table. Like Gato, her growths don't particularly matter, but they are extremely good all across the board. Her growths are actually identical to Tiki's, which combined with her ability to use the Divine Stone and the fact that Tiki is explained as not being dead in the story even if she is killed in gameplay, leads a lot of people to believe that Nagi is an adult version of Tiki from the future, or from a parallel universe, or that she's a reincarnation of the dragon god Naga, or both. Whatever she is, she's definitely an asset to this chapter, and probably your only hope at killing Medius if you've messed up enough in your game to unlock her legitimately. She also causes Medius to have a unique battle quote if she's the first character to fight him. But the world where Nagi exists isn't the world we find ourselves in. We find ourselves split up into 4 groups, separated into 4 corners of a large castle filled with the strongest enemies we've seen yet. Uniting our army is going to be the priority, but getting there required me to arrange specific units into corners that they're most suited for. I have the bishops at Marth's fixed starting location, with Gato and Agma protecting them. The White Wings are together because their support bonuses and identical mobility makes them strongest when they're side by side. Sita, George, Astram, and Zane are in the northwest corner, and Lind, Minerva, Hardin, and Tiki will handle the east side of the map. Down in the center, there's a fortified position with a sniper death hallway, fortified curates, and a manakete standing in front of the throne, which houses the big guy himself, Medius, the Shadow Dragon. In the battle preparations, he appears as a manakete, but once the chapter starts, he permanently transforms into his Earth Dragon form, showing off his considerable stats. He's not going to be one of those bosses who goes down easily compared to the effort we put in to get to him, and unlike all the other manaketes, he can fight at 1 and 2 range, so there's no easy way to chip him down. And he's immune to the effective damage of Worm Slayers and most dragon-effective weapons. He is weak to Falchion and to Tiki or Nagi using the Divine Stone, which is why the game puts so much emphasis on those weapons and making sure you have them before this chapter. He's not immune to other sources of damage, but with 21 speed, 27 defense with his bonus from the throne, 23 resistance, 60 health, and health regeneration every turn, anyone who isn't Marth or the Manakete girls needs to be very, very strong to deal a significant amount of damage to him. And on higher difficulties than normal, just forget about it. There's a shop in the southeast corner of the map selling vulneraries and door keys. Why would we need to buy door keys at the end of the game, you ask? Well, there's a door right in front of Marth's starting position, but this map also has a nasty trap contained within it, utilizing the most wicked of dark magic that exists: automatic doors. At the beginning of turn 3, the far northeast and northwest doors close. At the beginning of turn 5, the southwest door closes. At the beginning of turn 6, the center west door closes. And at the beginning of turn 7, the center east door closes. If you're not moving quickly enough to get your separated units together in the main hallway of the castle, your units can get trapped in these rooms and will become unable to contribute to the fight, or worse, get locked inside with enemies they aren't prepared to fight off. So either make a plan that lets you move fast enough through the doors before they close, or bring enough door keys to reopen them if you get trapped. The last opportunity to stock up on door keys before this chapter is way back at the vendor in chapter 16, the Battle for Altea, but I did not prepare effectively, and so only have 1 key to last me through this whole chapter, and I'd prefer to use that for the front door that already starts closed. So I have to rely on my critical thinking and math skills to get everyone through quickly. God help us. I put the Geosphere with its 2 remaining uses in Marth's inventory, and started off the map by using it to weaken everyone on the map, making this probably the most productive turn in Marth's entire life. Oh, and Medius is immune to the Geosphere, because he's an Earth Dragon, I guess. This middle room on the east side of the map has a general, a Draco Knight, and a bishop with Swarm. The real danger for anybody going in here is the Manakete in the hallway outside though, so I moved in my northeast units to kill the Draco Knight and bishop without moving into the Manakete's range. Agma opened the front door using my last key, and Gato took a frontline position to protect Marth, and did what he was put in this game to do by healing up my entire army from the Geosphere damage. The elephant-throwing ballistician in the front hallway needed to go on turn 1, so I sent Katria deep to finish him off, then moved Est and Pala forward a little bit to bait in enemies without being exposed too much. In the west wing, this nerd brought a magic sword without having any magic to use it, so Sita wiped the floor with him. I did some calculations to see if I could safely chip down this Manakete with George, and then finish it off in melee without getting Astram killed, and then George got a crit and just deleted it for free. I didn't copy anyone with Zane, so I needed to move him out of range of the remaining ballistician because he'd get one-shotted with his untransformed stats. On the first enemy phase, a bishop suicided into Est and dropped a free door key, a general chose death by Hardin, this paladin blocked the front door, and this paladin fed himself to Katria. The west side was in some trouble with only 3 combat-ready units, George at low health, and 3 dangerous enemies in the same room with a hero right outside. I realize that the ballistician doesn't need to die on this turn as long as I don't leave anyone in his range at low health, and also that Sita has a weapon that can instantly delete paladins and generals. She and Astram killed the two more dangerous units, and while I decided what to do about the hero, Lind melted this guy with a crit aura, Hardin used Gradivis better than Camus ever could, and Gato did what he was put in this game to do and blasted this paladin away. Est and Catria worked together to get rid of the hero on the west side, George weakened the ballistician, Marth popped the last use of the geosphere to finish it off, Maria healed everyone, and everybody else started making progress toward the throne room. Zane got stuck behind this door, but thankfully Est had the door key from that enemy bishop and was in range to open it up and let him continue. A pair of Draco Knights flew down, and my flyers showed them the error of that decision with back-to-back criticals. Minerva and Hardin squished the paladins riding through the east hallway, and I moved up Ogma with an armor slayer to bait the general. To his credit, this Manakee on the west side was just vibing and not chasing my units down, but I had Astram kill him anyway. The general fell for the bait and died immediately, and then the first wave of reinforcements appeared. The reinforcements in this map appear in two groups. The first group consists of a ballistician and a bishop from the stairs in the center west room, and a hero and a Manakee from the stairs inside the throne room. These reinforcements start on turn 4, and an identical wave spawns on turns 6, 8, 10, 15, and 20. As usual, blocking the spawn tiles blocks the enemies from appearing, so if you can afford to leave characters on stairways to prevent more enemies from appearing, go for it. Blocking the ballistician spawn with a unit who can survive against or even kill the bishops is a great idea, which is why I didn't do it. I just killed these two and then this curate because the Geneva Convention doesn't apply to the servants of evil dragon gods. I checked. Killing this hero with Hardin had the fortunate side effect of baiting in the eastern sniper on the enemy phase, and then the second group of reinforcements appeared. This group consists of a Draco Knight, a Paladin, a Manakee, and a hero from the forts surrounding the shop in the southeast, and another Draco Knight from the stairs in the center east room. The first wave of this group appears on turn 5, and identical waves spawn on turns 8, 11, 15, and 20. I grouped up my flyers to the west, then got my main squad to draw in a Manakee from the throne room. The next wave of reinforcements from the first group appeared, meaning there's a ballistician locked in that room who I can't get to very easily. I was starting to feel some pressure to finish this chapter quickly, so I took out the two Manakees blocking the way to Medius, and saw just how badly Marth will get bodied by this guy in a fair fight. While everyone else moved to hold off the reinforcements, I warped Tiki into the throne room. I probably could have done that on the first turn and used long-range healing to allow Tiki to slaughter everything in there and finish this chapter a lot quicker right from the start, but I like my final chapters to feel like actual battles and not just teleporting one or two powerful characters into the boss's bedroom to cause chaos. Just a personal preference. My Tiki hits Medius really hard, but will actually get doubled and killed by him in a fight as well, which made me start to get a little worried about my chances here. Tiki and George killed the east sniper together, Minerva took out the last healer, and I got everyone I could out of range of the ballistician. George took an elephant to the face like a champ, this Manakee came to the wrong neighborhood, as did this paladin. And because I haven't shown it off in this entire playthrough yet, here's how you do a triangle attack with the White Wings. If all three are standing adjacent to the same enemy, and one initiates an attack, she gets a guaranteed hit and crit. Each White Wing has a different dialogue line the first time they initiate it. Cool trick, glad I had a chance to show it off in this playthrough, but impractical in almost all cases. I took the rest of my turn to position my fighters and healers in a stronger position in the throne room. Those last two level ups that Tiki got increased her speed to the point where she isn't doubled by Medius anymore, so I could safely attack with her and bring him down low enough for Marth to finish him off. I traded the warp staff down to Gato so he could teleport Tiki out of the way, and then it all came down to Marth to deal the final blow. If he missed this 76% accuracy attack, he'd die on the retaliation, which would have just been so anticlimactic. So I warped in Sita nearby to give him the bonus from their A support, bumping up his accuracy by 10% to odds that I was much more comfortable with. Why couldn't he get levels like that when it actually mattered? Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel in this series from beginning to end. Before I wrap up the series on Shadow Dragon for good, I'm going to make one more video where I give some last thoughts on the game, this run, and how my style of creating videos for it has changed over the nearly 2 years that it's taken me. Check that video out if you're interested in it, and once again, thanks so much for watching. After that video has been uploaded, I'm going to get started on the next game in the series, Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadows of Valentia, so look forward to that. I'll see you then.